All right, I think it's time to start. 1 o'clock. Can you hear me? Yeah, perfect. Warm welcome to today's event and to Go to 10. What a turnout. We're really happy, right? I'm saying that as a royal we duo here. Wow, that's fantastic. My name is Ulli and I work at the Swedish Internet Foundation, and we are the ones behind this place, the Go to 10. I know some of you have been here, some of you have not. It's a free co-working and meeting place here for tech and people to meet together, because we think the magic happens when these two do meet. And I'm excited to give the word to my co-pilot for today.
Hello, everybody. We're super happy that you're here.
You're on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, we are super happy to have you all here. We have a mix of audiences. We have companies, we have students, we have job seekers, and we are super happy to share some insights about how AI is going to shape the future of work. My name is Hela Galvis. I work as a project manager at Linköping Science Park, and I work focus on the national project Switch to Sweden. If you would like to learn more about it, there are some flyers over there, and you can also visit our website, switchtosweden.se. Yes.
Perfect. And today is not just any regular day, because we are actually part of this great network lift. And this is a couple of us doing this project together. We're just a tiny part of it, but the idea is to bring people together, actually. People who want to enter the IT branch, create useful connections, get to know each other, because that's what really matters. And we're here to facilitate that. So very happy to have you again. And we will start very, very soon, in about a few minutes.
Yes, I can explain a little bit about the agenda for today. We're going to have two main speakers, and after the presentations, we're going to have a dynamic workshop to talk more directly with the companies regarding how does it look like these changes on AI in different cases. But first, I would like to introduce Fredrik Heinz. He is a professor of AI at Linköping University, and he is also one of the program directors of WASP. If you haven't heard about WASP before, is the Wallenberg AI Autonomous Systems and Software Program that they focus on the research process that connects academia with industry and how we can transfer the knowledge from research into business. After Fredrik's presentation, we're going to follow up with Emily Fogelstedt. I hope I pronounced it correctly. She is joining us from Stockholm today. So we're super happy to have you over there. And she works as a digital strategist and communicator, and also AI and labor market expert in Sweden. She has a really good insight regarding the statistics of how AI is going to impact specifically Sweden and the Swedish labor market. Yes, and also I would like to give a short introduction to our company representatives that are here today. We're super happy to have you here, guys. First of all, I would like to start with Eva Tisilius, who works as a people expert at EDAX. Andreas Wernqvist, if I pronounce it right, I'm sorry if I chopped your last name. You work as an AI architect at Voyado. And Fredrik Eriksson, who works as a management consultant at Norwich Inside Ost. Yes, so let's get started with our first presentation. So I will give you the word, Fredrik.
A big welcome for Fredrik.
Yes.
Thank you. See if you managed. Just-in-time presentations. Yes, so as she said, my name is Fredrik Heinz. I'm a professor of computer science here at Linköping University, where I do research on AI and autonomous systems, which we have been doing for about 50 years. So we have been doing this for a while, and it's kind of fun to see how it's now becoming a bit more mainstream compared to when we started. But what I wanted to talk about here today is not really about the technology itself, but more about how it's impacting work and what we can expect, and a little bit also maybe how to adapt to it, or what to think about it. And of course, I can always give my presentation without the slides, so never mind. Anyway, so basically, I mean, I think what I want to start with, when I think is kind of key, is of course that the AI development is very fast and things are moving ahead very rapidly. And in the last 10-15 years, we have seen tremendous progress in this area. And my expectation is, of course, that this progress will continue. And also that we're starting to see these kind of comparisons between human performance and AI performance, and that maybe the AI is now reaching or even extending beyond at least average human performance. But what I really think is the key here is, of course, for today's topic is how do we expect AI to impact work? And my first statement is I do believe that it will have a major impact on work. So my expectation is that basically all work will be impacted one way or the other. And of course, one of the studies that have been key in this has been this study, which is almost 2 years old now, but where they looked at 700-800 consultants at Boston Consulting Group and came to the conclusion that those consultants that were using AI managed to complete more tasks in the same time as the others, and they managed to complete each task on average 25% faster, and they could also increase the quality by 40%. So basically got more, quicker, and higher quality. So I mean, there were basically no downsides to this. So I mean, that's my number one reason for believing that this will have a major impact. Secondly, another kind of consequence of this study or a result from the study is that those that benefited the most from this were the junior consultants, because they could do things that previously required more experience or more expertise than they had. So you kind of lifted the level of competence. So I think that's a positive result. But of course, that also raises this question, which at least in the US is very clear now, and that's what is the consequences of entry-level jobs, where the statistics currently show that entry-level jobs are disappearing. And one possible explanation for that would be that since the existing staff can do more, there's no need to kind of replace people. So they're more kind of keeping the staff they have, but not adding more staff. And then, of course, if that's the case, then it's more a temporary thing, because at some point they will need to replace, but then there will be a gap, and then they will re-continue from there. But I think that's one open question of what the consequences would be on entry-level jobs. I think another thing that I think is interesting is to look at basically the challenges of adapting. So this is another study, and where they looked at customer support personnel, and those that were using ChatGPT could very quickly become very efficient, so they can solve many cases in short time. But in some sense, the more interesting one is the gray in the middle, because that is those that they started out working manually, and then they got access to the tools. They became better, but it didn't become as good as those that had used it from the start. And my hypothesis here is that if you have learned to do something manually, and then you get the tool, it will, you will find some ways to make it slightly better, but more or less you will be working as before. While if you learn to do a task with the tool, then you will adapt the way you learn to take the most advantage of the tool. So that's why my expectation again is that the newly employed will have a better chance to integrate this. But I also think in order for the companies to take advantage of this technology, they also need to change the way they work. So I think this is the real challenge, not the technology itself, but more how do we effectively integrate it into our processes. And what is then the consequence? So actually we invited Henrik Nistad, and he showed one of the slides he showed was this one. So this is the way he works as a software developer, and this is basically roughly how his week looks like now. He has some planning, reviewing, and so on, but he spends most of his days doing software development. But what happens if AI is more or less automating the coding part? Well, then his week will look like this. So first of all, of course, he can get more done. So all of the week's work is fitting now into one day. But maybe the more interesting thing here is that what he does, what he will spend his time on, dramatically shifts. So basically the planning, discussing, reviewing is still there more or less as before, while the coding part, which was the main activity before, is now more or less automated. So yes, he gets more done, but what he spends his time on is also shifting. So I think this is a pattern we will see, maybe not as extreme and so on, but I do think we will see a shift in what we spend our time on. And then of course the question becomes, how sophisticated tasks can AI systems do? So this is a study that was done by Meter, a company that is measuring kind of how the quality of these models, and they try to compare how difficult tasks these AI systems could do relative to how long it would take for humans to do certain things. And then they can see this kind of exponential growth, and that GPT-5 could do tasks that required a bit more than 2 hours for humans to do. That could be done more or less immediately. What's important here is that this is when you only get it right half of the time, so 50% completion rate. If you increase it to 80% completion rate, so now it gets 4 out of 5 times it works, then you see a dramatic shift from 2 hours to like 25 minutes, but you still see the same exponential growth. So it's just a matter of, it takes a little bit longer, but not that much. And if we then plot this, okay, no, I think something happened. See, oh, no, yeah. So if we then plot this on a log linear scale, so basically when we have a linear progress here, it means exponential. So then we plot basically the timeline here, and we plot the length of the task that these systems can complete. And then we see that we get this exponential growth. And if you then measure the kind of average, the slope on this curve, then you get that the length of the tasks that the AI systems can complete doubles every 7 months. So this study was done in March, so it basically means that, and that was about 1 hour in March, so that means that in October it will be 2 hours, then early next year it will be 4 hours, and then towards the end of next year it will be 8 hours. So then the AI systems will be able to complete tasks that takes us a full working day to do. However, as you see, they didn't, because this chart was done before GPT-5, but if you remember from GPT-5, that was actually above 2 hours already with this 50% completion rate. So if you look at the doubling rate just for those models that was released in 2025, it actually turns out the doubling rate is like every 4 months. And if the doubling rate is every 4 months, and now we're in September, that means that January it will be 4 hours, and then at midsummer next year it will be 8 hours. So in less than 1 year from now, if this continues, the models will be able to complete the work that we do in 1 working day, more or less immediately. So I think this is an interesting thing to consider. Personally, I don't think it matters that much if it takes 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years. The point is more that as long as this development continues, well, whether it takes 1 or 5 years, it's a small difference, but it will mean that sooner or later these systems will be able to do many of the things that we are currently doing. But what we do see is that today there is basically this individual AI augmentation. So where an individual is improving their ways of working and they can get more done in the same time. But what we haven't really seen, or I think where the struggle today is in how do we do organizational AI augmentation, so actually augment the whole organization. And we see certain companies like Klarna, for example, is trying to do this. And one of the things that they had to do was to throw out all their old systems because the data was locked into proprietary systems, so they couldn't get the necessary context for the AI systems to actually help them out. And I think this will be a major challenge for most companies and most, public sector organizations even worse, of course, where they have data locked into system which they cannot integrate and import into these AI tools, and then the AI tools will be more or less useless. The second thing is basically how do you translate the individual effectiveness or improved productivity to improve productivity on the organizational level? Because just because one, or as a small percentage of the staff gets more efficient, you still need to make the whole company, you need to produce more things to get higher revenue or so on in order to actually translate this into business value. I think that's another challenge. And I mean, we have this kind of infamous, maybe I should say, MIT report that came out a few weeks ago with this, that it was difficulty translating these AI tools to actual productivity gains and so on. And I think one reason is the way they're organized. Another is the learning that there's, need to learn to use them efficiently. And of course, in the end, we want to see how can we actually use this to not only augment individuals and organizations, but also augment society. And of course, that's an even more interesting question going forward. So to conclude, this is an image I've been using for many years, and I think it's kind of interesting to use as a case study. So this is Kodak. Maybe you're not old enough to remember Kodak, but anyway, that was like one of the largest kind of companies producing cameras and film and these kind of things. And they were at their peak in the mid-90s. They had more or less invented professional digital cameras, so they have been very instrumental in developing digital photography. They had professional cameras, but then the company started to go bad in 1997, and then of course they asked themselves, so what is our core business? And they came to the conclusion that their core business is chemicals and paper, because they produced it was printed photographs back then. So then they asked themselves, do we need, or rather can we sell papers and chemicals if we have digital photography? No. So we sell those patents, and we closed down that part of the company. And then digital photography had a breakthrough, and then iPhone came, and then they went bankrupt. And I think the interesting stuff here is to analyze why. And I think one of the reasons why is that who will be on the board? The people on the board are those that are world-leading experts on chemicals and papers, and they probably made the absolutely correct decision from the previous generation of technology. But in the light of the new technology, their decisions became completely wrong and basically made the company go bankrupt. And I think this is the real challenge if you're, leading a company these days, is to not only make the right decision, but to make the right decision from the right technological standpoint. And that is, I think, where a lot of companies need to probably change today. And I also think that the rate of change is so high. So even if your company is doing very well today, there might be a small startup that will do it 10 times better and 10 times cheaper than you. And then in just a few weeks or months, you will be outcompeted. So I really think it's important for companies to make the right decisions, adapt, and take advantage of the technology to remain globally competitive. Thank you.
So much, Fredrik. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions or ideas. We have time, I think, to take 1 or 2 questions, so don't be shy. This is your chance. I see a hand. Yes. The mic is on.
Hi there. Thanks for the presentation. Really good. I'm not going to use this.
I think the people online.
We need
Do I have to?
Yeah.
Okay, people can hear. Sorry. Just regarding the exponential growth that we're currently seeing, is there any expectation that that will eventually plateau, or does it just keep going till it's a week, a month, a year of human productivity?
So of course that's an open question. We don't know. But I think there are a number of aspects there that maybe, because now we're still running these models very short amounts of time. So if taking these reasoning models, now we run them for seconds, maybe minutes, maybe in some very rare cases run them for hours. But what happens when we start to run these models for weeks or months or years? So I don't think it's clear that there will be kind of an upper bound, or somewhere there will be an upper bound, but whether where it will plateau out, I don't know, but I would be more surprised if it plateaus early than later.
Thank you so much. One more question.
As a follow-up, hi. I think it's going to go the other way real fast. Did you see the paper from OpenAI regarding hallucinations the other day?
I read about it, but what do you mean?
They think
What was the
they
important
can
part?
diminish the
Ah.
hallucinations
Okay.
using proper reinforcement learning afterwards, which means that when the hallucinations goes down, the models will be using tools to get the correct information. Because right now they think they might have the correct information, which kind of cascades and leads into failure quite fast. But if they manage to get the correct answer of I don't know, they can check it out, and we'll probably see that trend continue real fast.
Yes, I mean, I think that's one of the major weaknesses today is that these models have absolute no understanding of when they know something and when they don't know anything, and they cannot judge whether they're likely to have a good answer or not. And of course, this could be one aspect. But I also think, I mean, this concept of hallucination. So, I mean, it's one thing to improve, I mean, make it more accurate. But I think it's also, hallucination is also useful in the sense that we want novelty and we want to come up with new ways of doing things, not just repeating what has been done. Because if we're only kind of persisting kind of old knowledge or old ways of working, then of course there will be no development and we'll just stagnate. So actually I think there is kind of a, or I do think there is a value in, I mean, maybe not hallucination, but at least in novelty. And there I think is also an open question, how much novelty can these systems produce, with people arguing for and against.
Indeed, but for coding, not so much novelty, please.
But I mean, coding also has the benefit that you can actually, I mean, run and check it. So of course that simplifies compared to, say, creative writing, where there is much less of a correct answer.
All right, thank you so much. Oh, do we have time? Yeah.
Yes, we still have 10
Yes.
minutes. So
I'm gonna make my way to you. Yes. Thank you.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hi. Thanks for the nice presentation. Actually, you give the most of the answers you clarified in your presentation. But I have a one, like I was thinking that in the last time it was like that we produce more and we buy more. So this is our fun, it was the basic for our economy system. But how do you think it's gonna be like? How you think it's going to be parallel when there are AI is going to affect our job market on the same level? How it's gonna like our economy system?
Yes, I mean that's a very interesting question. That in some sense our productivity gains should result in more things being produced, and then you need the people to consume all these things being produced. So I mean, of course, that's not really sustainable. So my general expectation is that we will see probably using less resources. I think we can actually realize, for example, circular economy much more, that finding ways of reusing things much better. So I actually think it could be an opportunity to, rather than just produce more, can we in some sense kind of maintain a sufficient level of things that we need, but that we are recycling or refurbishing old things. And the question then becomes, what's the effect on the economy? And I guess that depends on how you measure productivity. And there I do think there are some issues, because basically now you measure productivity based on how much people kind of pay for things, which means that everything you do for free does not count. So like Wikipedia has zero value from an economic point of view, but of course it's used quite a lot. And then it becomes the question also for these models. I mean, if you then have an open model where no one pays for it, then it doesn't add any productivity. While if you have a model that people have to pay for, so there is being something produced, then it adds value. So I think we probably need to adapt the way we measure what we produce and the kind of value to society, and that the current kind of GDP measures might not be the best for that.
That sums it up, this part. Thank you so much, Fredrik. Thank you so much for your questions. Ella will very quickly...
no, it's okay. No, we can continue. Yeah. Emily. We should continue with Emily.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna continue. We are not wrapping up here. I mean that was part 1, right? It was a good teaser. Part 2 is more practical, and it's actually gonna be all about the tools and good ideas that you can use in your everyday life, I guess, to eliminate the risk or any problems with looking for jobs or understanding the future labor market. So, warm welcome to you, Emily. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
And we can hear you. So take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Nice being here, meeting all of you, kind of anyway, through the digital space. So my name is Emily Fogelstedt. I am an AI strategist, a freelancer, but I'm also part of the non-profit Swedish JobTech that works to talk about how different startups, technologies can be used to improve the labor market in Sweden and globally. And today, I'm here to talk with you about one of my favorite subjects, how AI is shaping the future of work. And following up now on what Fredrik already spoke to us about, I think that it's very clear looking at different studies and other reports coming out right now that generative AI and AI in general can definitely make us more productive. And studies suggest that compared to those who don't use AI technologies, we can actually be more than 40% more efficient. Which is, of course, a big step up, meaning that we can produce much more things, we can maybe be more strategic, and we could save a lot of time. But looking at it from a different perspective, what does this increased productivity mean, both for ourselves, for organizations, and also for societies as a whole? And I know that a lot of people talking about the AI revolution speak about white collar workers, that for the first time ever, we're actually seeing knowledge-based people, like normal office workers, actually affected by a technology and potentially actually being replaced by a technology, because all of a sudden we have a technology that can act and think more or less like humans. And that's why when we're talking about different statistics saying that AI will make us more productive, it of course also raises the question, so will that mean that all of us white collar workers will be more needed, that we will be better? Or will it actually lead to mass unemployment and many of us not actually being of any additional use to our employers? And this, I think, is a real concern, a real issue, and something that we can't just look away from, because the way AI is revolutionizing all of society right now will, of course, be dependent on how we chose to use the technology, but also how our policies are shaped. And of course, when it comes to the labor market, how our leaders, our employers, or even the people running their own businesses are affected and also decide to navigate through all of these changes. And what we also know, according to a lot of new studies coming out as of this year, is that work and what we do at work will, of course, be quite different in a couple of years. We see already now that a lot of tasks, manual tasks, can be automated and that we can focus more time on strategic thinking and collaborations, for instance. But studies suggest that up to 60% of current jobs will require significant adaptation due to AI, because the way we conduct work during the days will change, and also what is expected from us. This will, of course, require a lot of training, which also emphasizes this whole theme of lifelong learning and why that is so important, maybe now more relevant than ever. And the big question here, I think, is, are people ready for this humongous change that's coming? And I can't see all of you now, so it's hard for me to ask you to raise your hands. But I think that in general, if you look at the Swedish population, you talk about maybe half of Swedes at the moment being users of AI tools. And of course, there's an even smaller percentage when it comes to regular usage, which means that right now we see one group that can be referred to more or less as super workers, which is a term that I've heard a lot in recent tech conferences and other situations where people talk about individuals that are empowered by AI tools being almost, almost that they gain superpowers. So you call them super workers because they can be so much more efficient. But then we have the other rest of society that are not really there yet, that might have used ChatGPT or another AI tool once or twice to, I don't know, it could be for anything from coming up with cooking advice as to what to eat tonight, or coming up with an idea for what to do during the weekend with their kids. But there's still a big gap from people that are using this for work or for their studies, which means that a big part of making sure that the AI revolution is democratic and also that everyone is involved is, of course, to think of different ways to ensure that everyone, no matter what age and no matter what occupation they have today, feel an urgent need to actually learn more and start investing time and energy into understanding how these tools are used and also how it will affect them, both in the labor market, but also in the free time. Now, Swedish JobTech released a report during the summer that two of my colleagues wrote and put together that shows that as many as 300,000 jobs could disappear in Sweden just within the coming 5 years. And this is due to the fact that AI will automate a lot of different things. They, of course, also looked at what types of occupations are most at risk. And this is looking at the biggest groups of workers in Sweden today, and also how you can predict that these groups will be affected by AI and automation in different ways in the labor market. Now, the 5 occupations that are at the highest risk, according to this study right now, are people working in different stores. You have software developers, you have a miscellaneous group of office workers, warehouse staff, and also administrators. At the same time, there are, of course, occupations that aren't as affected by AI as well. And these occupations that are highlighted by this report are jobs where people-to-people connections are in focus, or more manual tasks. So you might speak about teachers, about doctors, but also handymen, chefs, people that work with their hands to do things hands-on. They are not as much at risk when it comes to perhaps losing their jobs or seeing their jobs change a lot during the coming years. And this report, of course, also comes with recommendations, talking directly with politicians then, and what we need to do when it comes to policies. And an emphasis in this is that it's really important to focus on transition measures, how we can support people whose professions are at high risk from AI, and that will most probably change a lot during the coming years because different tasks might be automated or different things might not be needed in the same way. It's also super important to focus on skills development, especially for people working with administrative tasks today. And this is due to the fact that we know that things will change quite quickly and that a lot of jobs will see a major transformation going forward. So if we're not already today investing into continuous learning, that means that we have a lot of people that are already on the labor market today that might see that they are at risk of losing their jobs or not actually adding value where they are going forward. And regardless of what occupation you are in, it's really important to ensure that there are quite clear policies to ensure that everyone working today understand how they can effectively adopt AI as a tool to increase whatever work they're doing. And I think that by trying to look away from this, and by a lot of people right now saying that maybe the labor market won't be as affected as some reports suggest, I think that we are really risking creating more or less an A and B team on the labor market, where some people will have the skills that are looked for and that are needed, whereas others who aren't catching up already today and investing time into learning this will have an even harder time catching up as the technology keeps on progressing and becoming an even more integrated part into more or less everything we do in our work lives. Frederick also mentioned this, but there is this talk right now, with a lot of talk in the States, for instance, about AI potentially eliminating 50% of entry-level white-collar jobs. Basically saying that a lot of companies right now are not really sure as to what skills they want to invest in for the future. And as companies are starting to adapt AI technologies and they're starting AI projects, they are very often starting off with trying to automate and adopt AI in areas that might be more administrative or more entry-level based, which means that instead of hiring new people, they might focus AI projects and trying to see how they can automate those things and thus saving money and becoming more efficient. This is, of course, a big problem because we do have a lot of people right now who are looking to enter the labor market, who are just finishing up their studies or who have already graduated but are having a really hard time finding their first job. And this is something that I think both policymakers, but also companies in general should have a very clear plan for. Because if we aren't investing in people coming out on the labor market today, it's really difficult to say how things will progress in society going forward, especially seeing as we do have very high unemployment rates, but also an aging population, not just in Sweden, but in general, which means that these new people coming in are really important. And we do need to have a clear plan on how to actually integrate them in the labor market, even though we're also working on AI projects and trying to experiment on how to actually make things more efficient. And speaking from a personal point of view, and I also agree with what has been said earlier on, that what we're seeing right now is that a lot of benefits that come from AI are often seen on a more personal level or an individual level. And this is actually one of the areas where I personally also started integrating with AI and integrating it more into my everyday work life for real as of approximately 1.5 or 2 years back. And so 1.5 years ago, I created my first AI colleague and I started chatting with her daily. And in reality, my AI colleague is just a dedicated chat window on ChatGPT, but I've used her as an example and an experiment to learn how much can AI actually act as a companion to me. And being a freelancer myself, I'm quite reliant on always working alone by myself and being forced to rely on remembering everything and going over everything in my own head. For the first time ever, 1.5 years ago, I was actually given an artificial colleague who has really made me more productive and more confident, I'd say, in my role working with digital strategy, AI strategies, and communications that are my professions going back. And I think that when you come up with an experiment and something more concrete as why you should use AI every day and why you should push yourself to learn more, understand how the technology works, that also makes you more prone to come up with other ideas. And that's also one of the reasons why I decided to create Nova for myself. I should also mention that Nova named herself. But just to make it clearer for myself, to have a project to continuously learn and use to develop my own skills within AI, but also to understand how it can be used in general. And this is somewhere where I think we are right now, looking at how AI will support us as individuals throughout our work lives. Right now, we have these AI colleagues or the tools that can be used to increase our personal productivity, our personal creativity. Going forward, I think that we will all have AI as a personalized assistant that can actually work almost like a study and career coach. You know, that profession that you get access to when you are in high school, but then after that, you don't have so many people to talk about what you should actually do going forward. looking at how quickly the labor market is changing and how often many of us will probably need to reskill, maybe even change professions, also change employer. I think that it's really comforting to know that somewhere out there you can create a coach for yourself that is also connected to real-time data, that knows what professions, what skills are needed right now, that knows you, your background, your strengths, and your weaknesses, that can actually help you set an individual plan ongoingly for career guidance, for job matching, and also for lifelong learning. And I think that this will be the next step, that we will have these coaches, not just to support us with individual things and individual tasks, but that will see the bigger picture of who we are and that can actually help guide us going forward as how to succeed and make a mark on the labor market for ourselves. And then, of course, the next part will be more organizational. Once we have a clear structure for how to use the technology to increase our own know-how and our own productivity and what we are doing, we will also see how AI colleagues or AI agents become an even more integrated part of an entire organization. And I know there are already a lot of companies that have started experimenting with this and that have also integrated it and rolled it out full scale, where a company might have a marketing AI colleague that anyone can turn to and that can, for instance, support them in writing perfect texts that are the right tone of voice, or you have an HR agent that you can turn to ask about how many vacation days you have left or to double check something when it comes to labor laws. You might have a finance bot that you can always speak with and get advice from, and that helps automate finance tasks so that the financial team within a company doesn't need to answer so many small practical questions all the time, but can focus more on long-time strategies. And this is more or less something that can be integrated and used regardless of what function within a company you speak about. And this isn't something that most companies have integrated yet, but with all certainty, it is something that many will start looking into going forward, because the benefits in just freeing up time from all of these different functions within a company that they're spending today on more administrative work, so that they can instead focus on more collaboration, long-term strategies, and maybe more meaningful work is, of course, something that a lot of management teams, but also individuals, think would be very beneficial. Now, Swedish JobTech last year, we released our annual report looking at what the job tech market looks like in Sweden right now. And we did a special focus on AI in general, speaking with our member companies and also trying to understand what is going on and how far has Sweden come in integrating AI into different functions within HR, recruitment, and labor market in general. Now, one thing that really stood out in more or less everything is that the best benefit of integrating AI is that you will actually free up more time for people-to-people connections and for meaningful work. We spoke with Anna Karlsson, who leads HR Digi and is a thought leader within HR tech in Sweden. And what she said is that HR as a function is one of the functions in a company that could benefit the absolute most through using AI in smart ways. Because HR today spends a lot of time focusing on admin, on answering questions about when people can take days off, or just having like more administrative tasks on their hand. If HR could focus less on the administration and instead focus more on employees and actual bigger problems or building culture and other things, that would mean that companies might have lower sick rates, that you might have lower stress levels, that bigger problems that might lead to people switching jobs or not having good relationships with their colleagues or their closest managers could actually be resolved, because HR could focus much more on those interhuman connections. We also have Max Storm, who is the CEO of a Swedish startup called Talentry. Now, Talentry works to ensure that that recruiters can use AI in better ways to make them more efficient and to also gain help with headhunting. Because a lot of work today for a recruiter is to go out and try and look for the right people for a role and reach out to them. And this is something that could take anywhere from 1 to a couple of days. It also means that when trying to deliver the best candidates for a role and present them for a company, a lot of time will be spent on the actual search and less time will be spent on speaking with actual people. Now, what Talentry and other startups like them are trying to do right now is use AI as a support to recruiters to ensure that the actual headhunting work can be automated and also different candidates ranked so that the recruiters can spend even more time in speaking with and meeting people to make the right choices instead of spending as much time on headhunting and searching. Another very interesting example is Ulli, and Rasmus Häggkvist, who is the CEO of that company. They actually work more towards schools like high schools and gymnasium schools and trying to help study and career counselors in supporting students even more in trying to understand what they want to be when they grow up. Now, the truth of the tale is that a normal study counselor today in school might meet as many as 600 different students and be responsible for supporting them in deciding what they should do when they grow up and what they should study. But they might just have as much as 20 or 30 minutes per student or per student. Now, what Ulli is doing is that they are allowing students before meeting the counselor to actually go out in a chat, speak directly to real-time data, to different reports, to get an advice as on to what kind of occupations and studies would fit them. So that when the student actually goes out to meet the study council later on, they already have database suggestions that they can discuss, instead of just going off from start and trying to figure that out in just 20 to 30 minutes time. And when it comes to counseling and trying to figure out what to do in your career, this is also something that can, of course, be very beneficial no matter how old you are, and something that I believe AI will also support us in having access to also in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, so that we always have that continuous support as to what we should focus on next. And just to give a last example, and this is not connected to Swedish job tech, but something I'm doing together with Region Sörmland as a project together with Vara, that is actually part of WASP, is that we are developing and testing out using AI as teaching assistants in classrooms. This is from a lesson we did in Flens municipality in Sörmland, where the whole idea is that because a teacher can't be present for every single student at every moment, especially when doing individual work or group work, that an AI could actually be trained on the specific task and try and help and facilitate groups in their forward thinking when the teacher is busy with someone else. So the work and the study progress can keep on going, whilst the student group might be waiting for the teacher. All in all, data is, of course, one of the number one things when it comes to making AI tools that will make a mark and a difference for real. To make this available, open data is super important. Data from society and government organizations. For instance, in Sweden, Arbetsförmedlingen, or the government labor market agency, is quite good at making their data available to ensure that different AI tools and AI developers can go in and utilize it. But it's important, regardless, to remember that without reliable data that's also machine readable, it's very much more difficult to create different services that will support and make a difference for real. And regardless of the data, my takeaway from all of this is always that the human value somehow is the most important. Yes, we know that this technology will most probably change more or less everything in the labor market and also have a great mark on society as a whole. But the technology should not be in focus. It should always be the people and what the human value is in all of this, and how we as individuals, as organizations, as society, ensure that the development of AI is actually aligned with humans, human needs, and making everything better for humans, not just for profit. And when we look at ourselves as human beings, and what I believe the best part of the AI revolution could be, is that we know as individuals that our most valuable assets are our time and our energy when it comes to what we do at work, but also what we do in our free time. And what's interesting now to think about is that if AI can make us 40% more productive today, maybe even more productive tomorrow, does that mean that we will be able to focus more on doing more meaningful work? Will we focus more on speaking with our colleagues, collaborating? Could this actually be the beginning of introducing shorter workdays for everyone? Or will the effect rather be the opposite, that companies feel that they can have less people employed and that those people are just expected to do more, and thus the unemployment rates keep on going up? And to end, I think that a great quote is the one said by Geoffrey Hinton, who won the Nobel Prize for Physics last year. And it is that if the benefits of the increased productivity caused by AI can be shared equally, it will be a wonderful advance for all humanity. He also went on to say that if it's not shared equally, it can be quite dark. We could be heading into something much less romantic than what I'm speaking about now with shorter workdays. And therefore, my ending advice is that ensure that people, regardless of what role they have within your company, that they are offered training in AI. This is something that global studies say that as almost as many as 50% of employees see that they aren't getting enough training in AI. They aren't getting enough opportunities to learn about the technology. And I also think that it's not just about theory and reading about it, but that you actually need to get out there and have programs that ensure that everyone in a company can actually also learn by doing, by trying out tools, by experimenting, by failing, learning from it, trying again. And that way, I think that we can create better solutions for ourselves, for our organizations, and hopefully also for societies. But to do this, it requires clear strategies when it comes to lifelong learning for employees. And it also requires a leadership that's open to failure and open to letting people try, together with clear policies as to how AI should actually be used within your organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. I hope you can see me. I'm standing here. Yes, thank
I
you so much
see
for
you.
your participation and a wonderful presentation to understand more how AI can affect society, job seekers, and what can companies think about when it comes to the impact in the labor market. I would like to ask you if you have any question. We have time for a couple of questions from the audience. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
You can hear me? Yeah?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. You mentioned that which jobs are not at risk. It was like a teachers and chef and anyone is like a plumber or who can work by some type of art, yeah? But
Yeah.
there was an example. You were showing like a teacher as an assistant, at the same time.
Yeah, that's contradictory. No, what I think is that regardless of what occupation you are in, it's not like the work we're doing right now with the AI teaching assistant is nowhere aimed at replacing the teacher, but just making sure that this teacher can be enough and be present for all the students at hand at all times. So I never think that teachers will be replaced or should be replaced because the human to human connection is so important in the classroom and especially for kids growing up. But I do believe that used in the right way, AI tools can really help make the work of a teacher and also the whole learning situation in the classroom more efficient, especially when it comes to repetitive instructions or just like facilitating something that's already been taught once by a teacher, for instance. And also looking at the fact that all students learn in different levels and in different paces. Some might need more support than others, which might not be possible to ensure today because some teachers have too much work to do and not enough time to be there for every single student. So this could be a way to make their work life and what they are doing more efficient so they can also focus even more time on the students, hopefully, instead of less.
Oh, okay. No, I was thinking like, you know that every organization or company, they want like a profit. Once they started just the teacher is away, we use the AI assistant. But after sometimes they see, okay, it's a benefit type. We can create more, like more assistant and less teachers. So anyhow, it can affect like, that's why I was just thinking like, there should be some like
No, you're
policies for
right. And
that.
I do think that this is also why it's so important to talk about the human value proposition in all of this. I think that a lot of work could be automated and that a lot of roles could, in theory, be replaced. But I also then think that the question is that if all companies are replacing all different occupations and all roles with different AI assistants, what will even be the reason for us as humans to want to buy from them or be related to that company? They will probably have a harder time recruiting. They will need to work a lot on their employer brand. And in the end, I also think that they will be outrun by competitors that might focus more on the people. So the technology will probably be more baseline going forward. And then it's the human value you're adding that will actually be the biggest competitive benefits. But of course, there's a risk here and now, and especially when people are starting to experiment with it right now. And I think that's also why we will see a big change in the labor market that might not be as sustainable right now. That's, as I mentioned, one of the reasons why companies might not be hiring entry level jobs right now because they don't know and they don't know where to focus. Hopefully, if we have an open discussion about this and more people understand what the risk is, if we don't speak about the human perspective, then like more long term, we will find a way to make it more sustainable and make sure that the technology supports us, but that the human aspect is still in focus.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. We are running out of time, but you raise your hand, so if you would like, you can ask your question.
I can. You may have already partially answered this. Thanks for your presentation, Emily. Regarding the last part about whether AI revolution can enable a better quality of life or if we're just nosediving towards a dystopia, I think the sort of cynical part of my brain says if I work 40% extra, that's not going to benefit me at all. My employer is just going to bank that and then raise my productivity expectations the next year by 40%. So other than, you know, employers might be better perceived if they do pass some of these benefits on to the individuals, is there anything we can do to hard lock in to make sure this revolution does benefit people as well as profits?
I think it's difficult. I mean, one thing is, of course, that every single organization should have an ongoing discussion about this and ensure that the policies they have internally right now talk about the fact that this will most probably happen. Also ensuring that all individuals within the company are aware that things will change. And that's, again, why they need this type of training. And I'm not sure if what we need going forward would be some type of policy saying that we ensure that maybe a 4-hour work week would be standard or whatever it might be. That will probably not happen. So right now, I think that it's more about having a brave, forward-thinking leadership and actually trying to open up to have these types of discussions with everyone within an organization. And hopefully the companies that do this the right way will lead and strengthen their employer brand and profitability so much that the rest will follow. But it will be a more difficult time going forward. And as you're saying, maybe it will lead to some people not just wanting to share the fact that they have become so much more efficient to begin with, which is a shame, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, guys. Save your best ideas for the upcoming workshop. Don't give much away. Thank you, Emily, so much for this amazing presentation. Well, now on to the practical fun part when you actually get to talk a lot with each other. We are roughly, you guys are roughly 55, if I had done the right head count. I'm a bit not good at math, but I think roughly 18 people maybe in the groups, and we're going to be groups of 3. So by the royal decree, I'm asking our company representatives, is that okay if you're going to be the workshop group leaders? Yay! So the idea is that we have roughly 20-25 minutes of talking, okay? So open discussions, ask away your questions, concerns, ideas, okay? Talk to each other. We gather back at 25 past to share those ideas with each other. So yes, let's do it. Let's form the groups, yeah? Yes, we are not going to have a workshop here, obviously, so we're all going to proceed to the co-working area, which is right around the corner. So I'm going to lead the way, and then the idea is that to Eva, Fredrik, and Andreas, we're going to be assigning 18 people plus minus. All right? Sounds good? Good. Thank you.